Hi, my name is Chris Decker. Welcome to another episode of the Mission Ready podcast. We're in Kenya today and are honored to be joined by Major Retired Suba. Welcome, Major Suba. Well, thanks for coming today. Tell us more about your career and your background so that the readers can hear what's going on.
Thank you, Chris, for getting me this invitation to the Mission Ready, basically bridging the final mile. I am Major Retired Beautah Mwanza Suba, a Silver Star Presidential Award for an act of valor, and an accomplished military officer from the Kenya Defence Forces Special Forces. With over 18 years of service, my career stems from the tactical to the strategic, and I've been able to have various positions both in command, staff, and participated actively in operations. I think the highlight is I joined military in 2007, and we were able to undergo the cadet training at the Kenya Military Academy in Lanet. I then graduated in 22nd of May 2009 as a platoon commander and posted to the 20 Parachute Battalion. By the way, I chose to go to the Special Forces. That was my top tier because we believe we are a special breed of men. From there, I was then posted 20 Parachute Battalion as a platoon commander. Very proud. And you know, in any Special Forces unit, you have to earn your beret. So we underwent the para selection, very vigorous, and I was able to earn my green beret, then given by now General Nkoimo. So from there on, I now posted in to be a platoon commander. It was a proud moment because before we were being treated as penguins. Penguins, you'll put on a black beret basically, and just like any Tom, Dick, and Harry, But once you earn it, then you're recognized. So through that, my first operation, I was taken to Operation Linda Inchi. That is in the areas of West Pokot. And what that taught me is the beauty of appreciating culture. I mean, you put men and women on the same table. That meeting is not going to happen, And it taught also the importance of elders in a community. And that is one factor in any internal operation that is done here in Kenya you need to consider. Then I got into Somalia. We went to Somalia. And after Somalia, I got into Ethiopia as a liaison officer in Ethiopia. Basically, in Somalia, after I got injured, I transitioned into intelligence, civil military coordination, defense diplomacy, and strategic communications. This built my career to be able to operate at the international levels, basically in Tigray, and number 2 in DRC as a aircraft municipal liaison officer. And now the transition, working with UK JAG team and the US in Germany, where we were trying to work closer with NATO. This is what has built me to have a career. And basically, my experience made me transit from the tactical level, whereby soldiers we used to fight, to the strategic level, where you now realize the need to have stability operations, the need for humanitarian activities, because to me that became very core. So I moved away from matters of fighting to matters of now trying to see to it the livelihoods, making the human center, making the human lives be at the center of everything that I do. That has pretty been much what I did.
I mean, a lot of these environments were very challenging. When you look back, what were the more difficult places to operate in terms of a readiness, not necessarily just military?
Mm-hmm. I think both environments, I'll talk about the 3 environments which offer distinct challenges. For Somalia, is the very challenging, because that was a threat directly from combat fire. I mean, and it was my first operation that really made me to be whom I am, and it's an operation that changed my lifestyle. So therefore, that is the most challenging. I think for DRC, it is not challenging because the actors who are coming into are different. It is a systematic issue. We have the armed actors. We have different mandates that are overlapping. You're looking at the population that is very vulnerable. Again, the population has been weaponized to be a tool to strategically attack anybody who comes. So for DRC was about the systems, but the most challenging was the one in Somalia. Tigray, I think what really struck out was how fast a local issue could disintegrate the country and become a regional instability issue. And the rate at which that happened was very fast. So that made me think very fast on my feet in terms of trying to bring in the various security agencies, the humanitarian actors, the government, and the population, and ensure that all of them are aligned together.
What's your thoughts on these new environments? What's the best way to transition in and prepare for these types of things?
One factor that we need to understand is the issue of creating a narrative that will be able to support the population. So with these new environments, we are facing technological hitches when it comes to exposure to technology. Basically, everybody has a camera, So what needs to happen is we need to appreciate the local environment. Then once we appreciate the local environment, we are able now to see how best are we supposed to integrate ourselves to suit into the local populace and the needs and the challenges that they are facing. That is what should be at the center that needs to be addressed. And once we do that, then it's easy, for anything else to be able to flow in terms of prioritizing what needs to be done.
Are you kind of referring to Tigray in terms of the security environment and how things can escalate and just by the simplest things? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Actually, and one factor when you look at that environment, Tigray, it's a very small thing that really escalated, and the use of force threw everything out of balance. Today, when we talk about Tigray will take time to rebuild itself. I mean, we had very nice sites in Tigray. All of them have been destroyed, and still up to now, it takes time to rebuild it. You imagine how long that will take. Put up all the infrastructure, return everything in place. So we really need to be very keen in terms of how we want to do this. Necessarily, military force is not the ultimate answer to all the conflicts that are happening. At the end of the day, we need to have a sit down and understand what really are you talking about.
Well, that doesn't sound like a special operations guy, because when I think of you being a liaison officer in DRC, what was the challenge there?
Yes, and that's why I'm telling you. Initially, I joined military, and when I joined military, basically number one is I wanted to have a structured, disciplined way in which I can be able to raise issues on both the national and the regional level, which definitely will translate to the global environment. And I chose to join the Special Forces because we believe in combat. However, in my transition and looking at transiting to the intelligence sector, transitioning to civil military relations, you realize that ultimately fighting is not the end. Therefore, diplomacy kicks in. And that was now my transition. Basically, now you're saying I'm not speaking like a special forces person. That was my transition now to matters of defense diplomacy, whereby we would like to see create a narrative that will be able to suit the people. You understand that when you want to look at an environment, you need to analyze it in, I think, 3 angles. You look at the power, who holds the power. You look at who holds the financial, the money. And then you look at legitimacy. Who are the people whom you can go to and they can be able to speak. All these 3 are interrelated, and that's what now creates you and tells you fighting power is not necessarily you need to have the bombs, the artilleries, and eliminate people.
Well, when you think about DRC and M23, is there specific things we could learn from that?
Yes. One factor is that the DRC environment is a very good environment, and I actually say DRC is my second home. The environment is characterized by armed actors. How best do we understand the armed actors? The armed actors have been developed, I think, through 3 or 4 ways. One, origin, where they come from, because they localize themselves to an area. Number 2, there are those who are doing it for economic reasons. Okay. Number 3 is about territorial influence. And number 4, there's issues to do with having an effect on the Kinshasa government. Then number 5 is support from the government in whatever you want to execute. However, what has M23 done? You look at the other armed groups, which we can talk about, say, the other armed groups in the areas, and most of them are regionalized towards the provinces. So when you go to, they're regionalized towards the provinces, and those provinces are closer to East Africa, funny bit. So those provinces that are closer to Kinshasa, and you imagine the eastern part of DRC to Kinshasa is 2,000 kilometers away.
Oh, wow.
And of the 26 provinces in DRC, only 3 are the ones which are unstable. We're talking about North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. The east feeds the west. All right? And again, there's a division in terms of view, in terms of how the west perceive the east. So the east are basically Swahili speakers.
Oh, really?
And the west are Lingala speakers. So the west is peaceful. And the west perceive the east to be very chaotic. So the east, people come from the east have a feeling that probably then the country should be divided so that they go themselves. However, M23, apart from these other armed groups, the other armed groups are really fragmented. Why are they fragmented? Because they do not have a centralized command. Again, there are issues of some which are supported by the government, and one would want another one not to be supported, and he will be against this other armed group. But for M23, they are presenting structured way in terms of command. They have a centralized command and control. 2, in terms of their territorial influence, they are looking for governance, which is different from all the other areas. Yeah. So it's a hybrid governance, and they're looking at economic value in terms of taxation. They're doing it legally. And I think right now is 12 or 13 days just when I'm from DRC. The DRC which I went to in 2022, 2023 is not the DRC that I met in
really
2026. Yes. One factor is that when we want to look at, most of us, we want to look at security. But we forget that security without stabilization in terms of the economy, I mean, the population. Yeah. So I found a street that is very empty. I would walk into the supermarkets. And in the supermarkets, you find the shelves we have products, offers on the products, but we do not have the people to be able to sustain and buy the products. 3 is that I slept peacefully vis-a-vis last time. There are no gunshots at night. You can move freely. All right. There's no harassment of various government agencies, And that's what M23 has brought. It has brought order, The level of cleanliness actually was very good. However, the population is not happy. Why? We have the banks and the banks are controlled by a national grid which needs to feed to Kinshasa. So all the banks are closed. All right. The health system and the schools are controlled also by Kinshasa. So you realize that even vaccines are not available in the public health hospitals that are there. Now, M23 in itself cannot be able to sustain it. That is also another factor that we need to we need to accept. So, and an incident actually happened, which is very personal to me. A friend of mine who was a pilot actually fell down on the bathroom while he was taking a shower, and he happened to hit his head. So he was feeling dizzy and went to the hospital. When he went to the hospital, the doctors could not be able to do a scan. Now you imagine, it is not that he does not have the money. He has the money, but the equipment is not there. You know, what happened? The doctors could not be able to scan and know where the blood clot is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we lost him.
Wow.
Yeah, and for me, that was so touching. I met one of the doctors who told me that one of his vaccines, they were transporting them. And because of having a lot of militias in place, the drugs they took the drugs, held them up for around 3-4 days. They're supposed to be in a freezer.
Yes.
So what happened? They're destroyed. We have kids, which is very touching to me, who really require these vaccines. Now, the government in itself is not providing in a bid to weaken M23. However, last time M23 got into DRC, I think they stayed in for around 3 years. Currently, I think they're above 6 months. So, the human population, there is dire need. Most NGOs closed down, especially when M23 took over in Goma. And as I was coming, I saw Gadaworld. I think the headquarters is right here. Gadaworld is the biggest in terms of providing security for the MONUSCO. And they closed around 3 bases, I think. So even themselves, business opportunity is really not there. We have the airport. The airport is not operational. So you imagine if you have to travel to come to Goma. In fact, when we went, we had to use the road.
Wow.
And we moved from Beni with the road to Goma. Ideally, that would have been a 1-hour flight. Now, we moved for the whole day. And we had to wake up very early, leave by 0500 hours, and we arrived at around 1900 hours.
Were you relaxing on the beach, or what were you?
Yes. Again, we were actually, the facilities are there. Lake Kivu is very nice, very beautiful.
Oh.
However, and let me not say it's a beauty, prices have reduced. The
Really?
houses, yes.
That's good to know.
Yes, prices have reduced. I mean, Serena does not have clients like it used to.
Really?
Yes, Serena Hotel, like it used to. So M23 are very unique in the way they're operating because of their structured command, because of their territorial governance, and all the areas they have occupied are very safe in terms of their economy, because some taxations are being introduced again. I think when we were leaving, they talked about we having motorbikes and some vehicle tax for the taxis, which was being introduced to be paid monthly. They're actually doing a complete head count of the people in the area.
Are they?
Yes, and in that head count, you need to pay for the number of people in your house. So over and above the normal taxations that the government had, there's some other taxations that are being introduced again.
Let me ask you, what do you think the U.S. role is in these types of operations?
Yes, and I appreciate the role that the U.S. is playing. One factor is that the United States is a big brother. Now, we have various actors who are in this conflict in DRC. We have regional actors. We have regional actors in the countries, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, the bilateral trainings, all that they're having. So the role of the U.S., in my opinion, is he's now able to bring those actors to book. and accountable, because we realize that the African Union is really needs to work on some issues so that it can be a voice to reckon with. So, and when the US brings that, so right now the African Union is also having a parallel process where they have appointed, I think, 5 processes where we are having President Uhuru Kenyatta leading the former President Uhuru Kenyatta leading the track on the armed groups track. We have somebody else again lead.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So for the African Union, what it's going to do to complement the US is that it's going to segment on the different places where it needs to work, then integrate as a team, and then the US role now will be to ensure these main actors are able to ensure that we have peace, and that's the greatest role that the US will play. And ultimately, of course, the future is bright. Why do I say that? When I got injured, there was one major retired. He's called the late Major Nothian Gidi. May his soul rest in peace. He was a paratrooper, by the way. We used to sit at the hospital and try and reminisce and have some sing along some of the best songs, And one day he told me that, look here, for him, he got an accident. And then he was paralyzed. And he lived his life at the hospital. But he was very charming, And we used to be wheeled together on the bed to go out and bask in the sun. And he told me one day that, look here, I was a lieutenant. Then he told me, hey, Lieutenant Suba, one thing you need to know is that one day you will walk, even if it is not today. And when you do, make sure that you create an impact. And that impact is anything you need to turn to has to be gold. And you let it shine as bright as diamond. And I always remember that old man. And from his words is, I stayed in the ICU, for example, for around six months. I never used to walk. I used to be on crutches. But there is hope that the future is bright. And there is hope that the coming in of the US, to be able to bring down the regional actors and complement whatever the African Union process will be doing, then at the end of the day, the government of DRC, we shall have some peace resemblance. And that is what will be able to restore humanity to them.
Was there any other roles than logistics that the U.S. provided in general, or not really?
Not really in terms of at this juncture, because what is needed is once the AU process is complete, I think that is when, in terms of logistics, will come in for the US to bring in the regional actors in place. But again, the beauty about all these processes, the US and the DRC government all speak in the same language.
They were.
Yes. M23 have really zeroed in on the DOA process, and that is what they want to be followed in terms of trying to reintegrate them. So the factions in terms of the armed groups, I mean, it's just crazy. We are looking at 154 to 500 armed groups.
Really?
Yes.
And they're not all integrated.
And they're not all integrated, And now all of them need to come together, because in 2008, the tragedy was you bring the biggest armed groups together, then the small armed groups are able to take up the space that was left by the big armed groups, because we're not involved in the conversations. I remember even when we were in DRC, in the places where, because when we came, we used a soft power approach as the East African Regional Force. And we were able to ensure that M23 were able to vacate most of the areas without firing a single shot. And it tells you that the best war is that which is won without firing a single shot.
Yeah.
Then it hit us that in some of the areas they had moved away, we couldn't occupy. Because we didn't occupy, the other militias came in to occupy.
Oh.
Now, it brought a rift. Why? M23 liberated these areas through fighting. They couldn't just allow somebody else to come in and occupy. So we need to have a holistic approach of bringing everybody together and leaving no one behind, for us to have a peace that will really last.
So, I mean, what is the KDF strategy in all these countries? What are you guys trying to achieve generally?
Oh, basically what we like to achieve, KDF has been at the center of bringing peace to various countries. I mean, since the time in Liberia, we've been to Yugoslavia. And one factor is we are a center which is looked at as a peacemaking nation and military. So we would like to act as a mediator, basically. And number two, we will be the buffer zone also between all these fighting elements that are there.
Some countries, though, like Somalia, they don't see you as the peacemaking, right?
Very true, exactly. Despite the fact that they don't see us, one thing we need to appreciate is we share a common border.
Yeah.
And most of their citizens cannot be differentiated with our citizens. They are only separated by the border. And the uniqueness of us with them is that we have families who, at the end of the day, because most of them are polygamists. So you have a family in Kenya and you have a family in Somalia, all right? So therefore, and you're a Kenyan, all right? So therefore, despite the fact that they have this look of us not being very friendly, at the end of the day, we are just one people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what is our interest? We like to ensure that peace prevails and they're able to enjoy. By the way, Somalia has very beautiful beach. Their beaches are very nice, very clean.
Yes. I lived in Mogadishu for some of my period, so I would agree with that. Very nice up there.
Yes. So the issue, what we need, and actually what we are seeing currently, there's a shift in terms of the community itself. Why do I say the shift? The shift is towards them looking at starting to enjoy and love their country. And therefore, they realize that themselves, if we have a mindset shift in terms of economic-wise, in terms of professionalism, because what we are looking at them is just they do not have the exposure to realize that I can just earn a living by being a taxi driver, earn a living by basically putting up just a decent building. I don't need to fight. However, the polarity comes in with the clan dynamics, which play very significant roles towards that. And it is because of the clan dynamics that we are viewed not being very friendly. Yes, that is what really matters.
So it's civil military background is the heart of your career. I mean, it seems like that's what we're talking about here. What was your experiences with that? Where do you think you're going in high risk environments?
Yes. Basically, that is one thing that came into it when towards my deployment. And I realized civil military is very important because when we did the strategic communications, because I was instrumental writing the strategic communications doctrine for the KDF, did the syllabus, the training curriculum, and you come to realize the importance of soft power. Now, and this soft power is assumed in the asymmetric environment where we operate. Where do we operate? We operate in an era whereby it's characterized by everybody is a journalist. Anything that happens, all you need is a phone and data, and boom, you have a preferred social media platform, which is a platform that will be able to articulate any issues that you have. So through that, I realized we need to build a good civil military relations. And by that is we should be data driven. And when we are data driven, it ensures that we are able to attack, one, the mindset of the people. And once we have a strategic shift of the mindset, then it actually translates to results whereby people will start looking at things different. In terms of the civil military, I won in during the Tigray crisis and the close coordination. I was able to open up 3 corridors. All right, and the 3 corridors were able to ensure that both the security sector, the non-governmental organizations, and the communities were able to operate all through, and that ensured that we did not have a humanitarian crisis. As I look back in DRC, in the areas where we were operating, basically, we needed to understand who holds the legitimacy of an area. Now, in terms of the other players who would want to come in and pass through, we would ensure that there is a smooth transition. They do not meet the roadblocks, and through that, I was able to ensure that operational effectiveness has happened. And through the same, I put up liaison weekly joint meetings, proposed weekly joint meetings and daily briefings, which ensured operational coherence by MONUSCO. We as a regional force, we have various actors, WFP, who are playing in that area, and various NGOs in that sector. And if anybody wanted to reach out for a certain service, then it was very smooth and it transited very well. And that to me is very passionate. And even like you bring stability in areas where there's instability. In as far as CQBs is concerned, in as far as even creation of planet and the areas you operate in, you've ensured that you thrive in where there is no stability, but you bring in stability.
Well, I mean, you're kind of talking a little bit about trust, right? Talk about trust.
Yes. Yes. Now, how is trust earned? As a military force, trust is earned through various operations that you'll be able to do, and that will bring in confidence building. This ensures that you are timely, you are reliable, and then once you're timely and reliable, you're able to achieve results. Now, most of these results that you'll achieve is what will be able to build trust. And that is what we did in any places that we've operated. We ensured that if there's a call to cry, if there's, for example, we had an incident where a mother was delivering and she had complications. All right. And when I was called in, we ensured that we dispatched the ambulance right in time. And that I was able to break some of the protocols, because what I wanted was the community needed for us to gain trust and legitimacy. And there's a very beautiful, bubbling baby boy who was born. The other day I was in Goma. I went to visit them at the IDP camp where they're staying, and the mother was very happy. I also, another incident that built a lot of trust was interacting with one of the armed group leaders, and he gave his reasons as to why he's into, because he said it's all about dignity, it's all about trying to earn a living. And when we were able to ensure that he's to till his land, because he had land, bring in the fertilizers in place, he moved away from that issue. So it ensures that you're very timely in terms of whatever you're doing, and intentional to be able to build that confidence and that trust. And that at the end of the day, and then you have a smooth flow to anything that you're going to do.
Yeah. Let's take a step back on coordination. International organizations. You guys had to deal with a lot here in Africa, UN, US. What's your thoughts on how that's successful? How do you make that successful?
Yes. One factor you need to realize is that we have overlapping mandates with the international organizations, regional organizations. All right. So when it comes to how we're able to ensure that we work in coherence, it was very simple. Number one, we do not want to work with the mandates, because the mandates are overlapping. Let us work on something that cuts across. That is stability. That is the humanitarian need. All right, and ensure that we have a peaceful, calm environment. How are these 3 areas going to interact? and this interaction is what ensured that we are now able to work coherently, because we have a common factor of where we are looking at. But if you sit down in terms of the mandate, it's going to be very crazy, and that's what makes achieving majority of what needs to be done in an area be very hard. But when you consider the three things, you're good to go. And
Yeah,
I
I
would
can see
keep
this.
it until now. That's what needs to happen.
So, I mean, Kenya Defense Forces are a major non-NATO ally. Has the U.S. provided any material support, readiness support, and how might it have helped
Y-
over time?
Yes. Over time, I mean, the support comes into number one, into training. And like I was telling you, when we were establishing the KDF syllabus, we interacted with the NATO representatives who were coming in to assist us in terms of the restructuring, the restructuring of it. So we've enjoyed a lot of support in terms of training. We've enjoyed a lot of support in terms of mentorship, all right, on how things are supposed to be done and what is needed, and finally is the some of the logistical support requirements have been able to be given, and this has ensured that operationally we have that capability to be able to move mountains at the end of the day.
Any idea in terms of mission readiness, things that we could be doing in the future that would make it even better?
Yes, a lot. I mean, what we can cut across right now is attacking, basically just attacking the mindset of the people. One factor that we need to acknowledge is how best can we be able to bring stability in the area.
Yeah.
And where mission ready actually would really work best is currently, for example, when I visited, there's a humanitarian crisis. Okay. And through provision of, say, vaccines, that is one area, through provision of some of the basic requirements, then we can be able to set up systems that will be able to sustain the environments that we are working in. Having done some good research in that area is that giving out money is not the perfect thing, because money is never enough, but attacking where it matters most is what is very critical. And looking at the populace themselves on whatever they need and creating of a system that they'll be able to thrive in and empowering the people. You realize there's a huge youth bulge in DRC.
Yeah.
Now, the huge bulge, and as I look at it, is one factor that nobody has ever invested in DRC is education. Everybody comes to invest in mines. Everybody comes to invest in, say, hospitals. Nobody invests in education. Now, you'll realize education will change a population, not immediately, but when you look at, say, 5-10 years, that is when you'll see where education comes in. And then, how best can we be able to ensure that the population in DRC can be able to get opportunities outside DRC? My view is that the education system has crippled them. Not unless you are an elite with an exposure, and most of them come and learn here in Kenya. Those who come and learn here in Kenya and go back, now they're able to thrive very well, and if we are able to put up good education system that will expose them to the outside world, then they will have wings to fly. They will not be centered just only in DRC.
So let's stick with DRC. I mean, kind of back to logistics.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. is trying to invest in a lot of money there to try to get critical minerals out of DRC through transportation
Sure, yeah.
logistics. Are you seeing evidence of that? And then how will that work with the population that's not educated?
Yes. One factor is how do we need to open up DRC? Infrastructure is one critical thing. DRC has no infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I'll just mention basically roads. traveling in DRC, you have to move by air, all right, or by boat. The roads are very pathetic, I would say. Very. So the other day, when we came to, when we're going to Bunia, we happened to use through Lake Edwards, and then Lake Edwards or Lake Albert either. And then once you alight from there, you now get into a cab, all right? Not a cab, it's a taxi. It's a taxi, basically.
Okay.
But these taxis are the first premium model. We have a premium model, yes. They call them leo leo. Leo leo is a Swahili word meaning today, today. Like if you get into it today, you'll arrive today, no matter the distance. Funny bit, I didn't know how strong those cars are. I mean, they will hit the potholes just direct, and you know that we don't have anything on the tires. The shocks are still running okay, and there are no roads basically, even where it's passing. So if we can be able to create the infrastructure, so how best would happen is we need to translate issues of the mining to infrastructural capability. Then we can now be able to see the populace will be able now to see education at its best. But you see, it is a structural issue, I would say, in my opinion, that infrastructure is not developed. And if you get into their plans, I don't know. It is just God help us so that we arrive. And that's the only mode of transport that is there because of the expansive nature of the country.
Yeah, it's way big, isn't it?
It's way big. It's way big, the country. And then people will come to look at, just in line with that, we have military governments, all right, in the 3 chaotic areas. The government has installed the military government. In my assessment is that the military government has been installed in order to restore peace, all right? However, the military government in itself, again, is trying to do development, all right? Development in the sense of they're building the roads, for example, you go to, and that's only, I saw it in Bunia. We have roads that are tarmacked, okay? But then, what was your core mission? Is to bring peace. Making of the tarmac can be done by civilian authorities. So they are shifting in terms of their priorities and what needs to be done. So if we can ensure that China, we ensure that US and all the critical minerals will translate to infrastructure, then naturally it will translate to education. Then people will start seeing. For as long as that is not happening, nobody is going to see anything.
Let's move to evolving security problems, the future.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as the biggest security threat over the next 10 years throughout Africa?
One thing that we're looking at is evolution of non-state actors. All right. Technology, all right, is going to become a very big threat. And number 3 is failure to adapt to that evolving environment of that threat in terms of the doctrine that various security agencies have to operate in. The environment currently is very asymmetric in nature. I mean, you cannot know who the enemy is. So therefore, what are the best ways we need to adopt towards that environment? And because of a lot of corruption, I would say, unsatisfied populace, then it creates a vacuum of the non-state actors to come into play. So the non-state actors will come into play to defend that which they think is right. Then the coming in of technology currently, we cannot do away with technology. The earlier we adapt, the better it is for us to be able to counter these threats. So as we look forward is a change in the way we operate to suit the evolving threat. doctrinally. Right now, I would say there's an adaptation of motorbikes, for example, which actually most armed groups are using motorbikes, and they've mounted a gun. Now, critically, you analyze and look at it, it makes a lot of sense because we have terrains that we cannot have a vehicle coming in. All right? So the motorbikes will really do it very well. And what are we as national force? What is it that we are doing towards that? You know, there's an issue of ensuring Africa. We need to move away from, we need to make military and security forces friendly to the people and move away from this cocoon where we are so closed, nobody knows what we are doing, and that's how it is. You know, that are the things that are going to make us be able to fight this threat. Again, we have a youth bulge. All right? In the next 10 years, and I'll take an example of Kenya, a lot of soldiers, ex-military, police, civilians, they moved to Russia. All right? And I think we're talking of around 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 of them. Nobody's looking at, these guys are going to come back here, say in the next 3 or 4 years. The technological exposure that they have in terms of weaponry will surpass what Africa has. Because in terms of them moving in that area, we have people from Tanzania, we have people from, so it's Africa basically, generally. Yeah. Yes. So, and right now the drone technology is really advancing at a very fast rate. So what will happen one day? People will be having demonstrations and somebody will carry a drone and put an ID and throw it up because he has the skill. And that is going to be very detrimental to Africa. So the need to adapt ourselves to the current evolving threats, to the current trends, and move away from the doctrinally how we used to work. You know, and that's why I look at NATO. I remember when we were working together, is that, for example, they review their doctrine every 3 years now. And the way they bring in all the actors of NATO, and they're able to bring in now the various versions of doctrines that will come. You know, and this is a hybrid doctrine because there are various players who are coming in. It is time for Africa to have such a mindset that will be able to ensure that we work cohesively, you know.
When you talk about that, we're talking about gaps between stability operations, crisis response. How should we change with international organizations to prepare for these futures?
Yes, I mean, how we need to prepare for the stability operations, and there are various players who are inside, is number one, we need to have a coordinated effort and understand that you need to tie the military, you need to tie all the humanitarian actors, all the NGOs that are operating, all of them to speak one common language, all right? Despite the fact that either would be having interest, but we need to operate on a common baseline. Now, once we fulfill the basics, you know, we are able now to ensure that you've taken care. For example, an investor who's doing something, all right, in a certain area requires security, all right. As a military person, I need to ensure that his equipments are safe, all right, productivity is at its best, all right, and there's non-interference, and it is consistent. This ensures that he's able to perform his duties perfectly, all right, and at the end of the day, it feeds into the community legitimacy that comes into play, and therefore we're able to tie up and operate as one. So that to me is very, very, very key, very key.
So what about new technologies? in the military's AI, security, surveillance, drones.
Yes.
I mean, what do we need to do to, in your perspective, especially in these deployment areas?
Yes. It is time we adopt technology. Technology ensures that we reduce human casualty, for a fact. You know, technology ensures, and for example, like right now, we have issues to do with the PowerPoint BI, the PowerPoint BI, which is a data collection tool that is able to do some analysis, all right, and be able to inform. And this directly now needs to happen, that we need to ensure that all these things, policies are made towards them, okay, and the policies made are adopted. So we use it to complement whatever is currently happening. And this ensures that, number one, we'll achieve our missions very fast. Number two, we'll save on time. And number three, we shall reduce the human casualty at the end of the day. So we need to adopt technology as it comes and as it goes. The more we remain and lag behind, then the less we shall be able to achieve our missions. And therefore, we shall be looked at as military or security agencies that basically are not able to adapt to any environment.
Well, you think about it, the opponents are also adapting too.
And I will tell you, for example, the opponents are really adapting. We learn in KDF, for example, we learned a lot from Al Shabaab. Today, the coming in and using of the technical vehicle is because of Al Shabaab. Yes. Today, we ensure that, for example, we ensure that in our operations, even in the defense localities, is that initially, how does the doctrine operate? The doctrine says artillery weapons should be located some kilometers far away. The infantry are on their own. The reke, the screens where they're supposed to be. But doctrinal changes have made us understand that we cohere and operate in one area and give each other mutual support.
Yeah.
You see. So the enemy in himself is bringing in the changes that are supposed to happen. And these changes that are going to happen is we are adopting to them, which in my opinion is not the right thing.
Correct.
What we need to be is we need to be ahead of them.
Yes.
So whatever is coming, we should have factored it, and we are ways ahead. That ensures success at its best. And through that is what we're talking about, operation risk intelligence, that we have a predictive intelligence, not just intelligence, that is able to guide you. And this intelligence guiding you, it will be through having done a great stakeholder mapping that you have done, and then it ensures that smoothly you operate. So we need to be to have that predictive intelligence and very futuristic in terms of our operations.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Having just come from Ukraine, you have by all measures an inferior force ahead of the majority opponent, but they're staying ahead of them on all aspects of tactics and technologies.
In fact, I saw something about Ukraine in terms of how they're evacuating their injured. Yes, and that really amazed me. Equally, currently, the war is shifting from fighting with the main battle tanks and all that, okay? Very expensive to have a main battle tank. Very expensive right now to have the fighter jets. It's just not expensive to buy, it's also expensive to maintain. Now, we have now the drones, which are now providing an easier way. They're reducing in terms of casualty exposure to the human. They're bringing in matters of accuracy, the drones, and then you can be able to see whatever has happened. So that in itself, and I saw it in Ukraine actually, that they are putting in a lot in terms of the drone technology. And it is something that we can learn here, because why do we have, for example, we've had a lot of issues internally, matters of cattle rustling, okay? I mean, on the pastoral communities, this is the main headache, pastoralist. Now, and this cattle rustling essentially is a business because you'll find the cattle have been stolen and they will never be found. All right. So how best can we be able to reach out? And the terrain that they're operating is a terrain that themselves, they know better. So what happens is if an attack has happened somewhere, number one, in these terrains, we need to equip them with network, Safaricom network, telecommunications network, because they do not have. Majority of these areas, again, suffer because of unavailability of network. So therefore, when an incident happens, by the time it is reported, people are miles and miles. By the time we now get a chopper from either Nairobi or from the center of where the operation is happening, people have already moved. So which is the best way? Adaptation of technology, adaptation of the drone technology, which is able to move very fast, able to surveil, give you real-time intelligence, and again, give you an after-action review of whatever has happened. So it is time, and I really concur. What I'm seeing, the way the Ukraine, Russia war it's really revolutionizing how the future of warfare is going to be fought.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about previously was the recovery of disabled or injured vets. They have to be pulled out. They're using automation to do that. You being a disabled vet, what's your experience? How should the services support disability as they transition through the service, out of the service?
One fact I like to talk about my disability, and I enjoy it. I call myself a limping general. The incident actually happened. How I acquired the disability is I was shot 8 times, and I was shot in Somalia, an area called Badade. It was on February 18th at 12:10 p.m. And I still have a reminder of it with me. I actually came with my.
Hopefully, it's not a gun.
This is one of my boots that I was
Is
wearing.
it really? Wow.
Yeah, during that day. So this is the entry. How I was shot is
Wow.
the enemy fire was coming from behind. All right. So this was an entry right here. This is the bullet entry.
Wow.
And then this is the exit. So this was my first bullet. I still keep this,
Wow.
Yes, and always remember it. So it went away with some toes here, of course, on the left leg. This is the left leg. And then the next shot was on the femur. All right, the femur. And then the last shot was on the hand. All right. And what that taught me is leadership. True leadership comes when everything else goes wrong. I still held up to the radio, and I was still able to radio back to the main base, that contact, wait out, casualty, it is myself, and everybody was amazed. Wow. But I was able to still control the battle. At the end of the day, we were able to save 12 of my colleagues. That was really a redefining moment for me, because from there I went to the hospital, stayed in the hospital for 2 years, ICU, stayed in 6 months. And, I was taught how to walk. I always remember I was taught how to walk like a small child, here you have like ta, then I'm already a grown-up person. So I've put forward the left leg, and I still want to put forward the left leg, just the way babies do. And I come to imagine that our physiotherapists were very good. My experience at the hospital the hospital was good. I was treated by Colonel Doctor retired Adari, very perfect, good doctor, because they received me when the ambulance came, and they were able to improvise a splinter, because my right leg actually was out, so they had to put the splinter and then tie the two legs together. Then moving out of ICU, coming back to the recovery journey, and I remember now Major General retired Nganga, who was the Director of Medical Services, was also one of my doctors. During my discharge from the hospital, he told me, we have only done 5%. 95%, it is now yourself to do. And I really laughed it off. I didn't know what that calls for. But that is now what changed my perception towards disability. And remember, I was a special forces officer. I don't believe in taking medicine. I have never gotten sick, never been admitted. All I know is we have to wake up in the morning, you go do your runs, you're good, you go to the gym and you're okay. Now here I am in the hospital.
Yeah.
Now discharged, back home, basically back to the community. So you realize the first challenge is I needed a house that is not a story building. All right. Again, I needed a house that is not too cold. All right. Again, mobility. How am I going to be moving from going for physiotherapy sessions? Then I needed a special diet because the bones and all that were, and I'm throughout on medicine. So it now starts giving me a different perspective about life. At that time, I remember there was a song released by a musician here in Kenya called Deno and Daddy Owen. It's called Mbona. Mbona is why. So in that song, they have titled the different disability cases and what they are passing through. Actually, in the video, if you do not have your own car and you're going to get into a matatu, which is the common mode of transport being used, no matatu wants to carry you. Why? Because they're going to get late. By the time they get hold of you, you get into the car, there's another one that is on the line which has already passed them. And by the time they arrive at the station, this one will be ahead. So nobody cares about.
Wow.
Yes, that is just one of the.
Funny.
Yes, it's funny. And then you just want to reintegrate to life. We don't have walkways. You need to look at toilets. I always tell people that a toilet is a basic need that nobody talks about, because you cannot go to the normal toilet that is just down. You need something that will sit and assistive devices.
Yeah.
And these are challenges that even infrastructurally, when people are building houses, nobody looks at that. Yeah. Everybody just builds for and the way it is. So I was on crutches. I was on a wheelchair before, came to have crutches. And I remember when I had stayed in hospital for that 2 years. So when I wanted to go to town, you just want to just be normal. That issue of the matatu actually occurred on me. And I had a car, but I couldn't drive. So what I said is, I'm going to drive that car. And I asked my friends to put me inside the car. That's the only thing I needed. So this right leg had a lot of problems. So I would press on the brake pedal until I can be able to sustain that pain. Okay? It was my first time now driving in Nairobi. And I got an accident. And I couldn't move out of the car, And I told those guys, what you do, just pick those things, put them inside this car, and me, I'll drive off. Beauty is, I think, the person who I hit him was very sympathetic, by the way. In fact, he came, I couldn't move out of the car, and there's nothing. In fact, I'm asking him to do the rest. And he was able to ensure that I drive until I reached home. And he was the one who actually took me from the car and back to the house. And from that day, I now started being independent. The thing is, for me, I had a strong-willed mind that was able to ensure that I do not go away. And especially that time, KDF as a system had not put up structures towards welfare, towards all that. And that's when I started advocating for welfare in the KDF myself. I came up, formed a group of people who've been injured, and so that if they have issues, to be able to address them through there, because I lived through the issues, and I would go to hospital daily for physiotherapy lessons and all that. And it is through that for me, disability became very passionate to me. And through that, I said I wouldn't want, because we were first casualties of war, actually. I was number 2 or number 3 in the war in Somalia. number 3, I think, because we had the first one was the late Ngetich. He was a good friend of mine. Then we had my intake mate. They passed on. So now is the next officer, in terms of officers, actually. So I was the officer who first survived. Yes, the officer now who first survived. So myself and that experience taught me that for me, I need to ensure that those who are coming after me do not suffer what I suffered, And I ensured that what are the things that a disabled person needs to access, all right? And I would go and advocate it to the commanders. And beauty is, I had brilliant military commanders who would listen to me. And that is actually what led to me. I was appointed as the KDF brand ambassador for persons living with disability.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, and I have an appointment letter towards that.
Is that a permanent appointment or just part-time? Or
it was permanent when I was serving
Wow.
the KDF. It was permanent appointment for persons living KDF, persons living in the brand.
Good.
Yes, I was a brand ambassador for KDF. It is through that we are able now to start organizing awareness in the KDF on matters of disability.
Was there a swimsuit competition with that too, or just general? You just represent them.
No. It was general, just to represent them. Yes.
So you went around on events around the nation.
Yes.
Talk. Yes. Do they still have that program?
Currently, since I left, I don't know if they still have that.
It's a very good program.
Yes.
It's very good.
It was a very good program, actually, because even organizing, when we organized for the first meeting, bringing in MWAC, running activities, they would be guided by the office of the KDF brand ambassador for disability.
It's a great idea.
Yes, I represented them even in the Persons Living Disability Council, and that's how I got myself into Paralympics.
That's where we met.
Yes, that's where we met, exactly. And I came into and became a secretary for the Paravolley, the Kenya Paravolley Federation. I joined in shooting, the parachuting sport team, and that is where I was now representing. I even did a paper towards KDF and the understanding that we need to form Paralympic team, the advantages that has to come with it. And like I said, the most valuable player who's ever awarded matters of Paralympics is a retired sergeant from KDF. Unfortunately, he passed on through an accident. But during the time he participated in Paralympics, he did not want to be recognized. Because why? There was nobody to offer him support from this other side. So by the time I'm coming in, I think the guy had just got an accident and passed on. But he really traveled and was given an MVP. I have his photo even with the medal that he was awarded in Rwanda. That is in Rwanda where he got that award. And it showed you that we need to use the vets, the injured, Why? This is an untapped resource. Yes. An untapped resource that has a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience. And it can be able to ensure that in terms of execution, very fast, with military precision, And from that time, I have run several initiatives to try and rally them together. And where I sit even until today, they will still reach out in terms of assistance and trying to ensure that things are moving. I created a system whereby the injured vets, number one, is we accept ourselves. All right? And once we accept ourselves, and that's what I always say, and we always joke about this disability issue. I think the other day when we had the Stephen Hinga, when he came, Stephen Hinga will joke and tell me that, Major, I need to give you a girlfriend. And I'm like, yes, and I need to give you a blind girlfriend. And I'm like, why? Because, us, we feel by touch, So he tries, that's a simple way of telling you, we just need love, we feel by touch. And we will joke around, and he says, in fact, right now, he does not want eyesight. Remember when you were saying where you want to dance?
Yeah, I do.
In fact, he told me one thing, that he wishes that he would have seen the crowd yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes. He actually mentioned it to me yesterday when we were having a talk. He told me, Thank you so much for this invite. I just wish I would have, because there's a time people clapped for him.
Yes.
Yes, that thing that people clapped made him very proud. He told me, I wish I would have seen these people who are clapping for me, this audience. Mwangi told me, Mwangi, when we talked and then he came and talked later. You remember? We gave him the mic, then it's like he was done. And then he said, then after that, he said, there's something I want to say. So we were having a talk. He was excited about the video. He didn't see the video actually. Yeah. And he told me, send me that video. I didn't know that we can have a space where I am celebrated, a space where I'm put on videos, audio visual,
Yeah.
and people are listening to me, and he told me, you know what you need to do me next when you're seeing me doing the MC? I want to be an orator, like to be able to speak, fluently, like the way you were saying. And that's when he mentioned, that's where is like there was a cut of speech, and then he came later and said it. But he's like, I know you have the best interest at heart for us as people who are disabled veterans. And I told him, for us, the sky is the limit. And all of them, I keep telling them, you have your own key, and since you have your own key, until you give your key to somebody else is when you'll never be able to unlock that door. But if it is the doors which are going to open and to see you triumph, then we are going to be the best in the region. Yes.
So when we talk about legacy, what do you make of all this? Where is this all going in your life?
The legacy that I want to leave behind is an impact on the veterans and a change in the lives of people. And if I cannot be able to make that change for someone to live happily, then I don't think I will leave a legacy. Every places I have operated, there's a legacy which I've left. Forming up of the disability veterans group is the best thing, and that's why I say the injury is a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
And today, as a limping general, I am my own general. Because why? I'm able to bring like-minded fellas, and I really appreciate Chris, you coming in to be able to bring impact to the human population, to be able to ensure that how can we redefine humanity in instability and bring stability to them.
So you were awarded the Silver Star by President Kenyatta. What does it mean? What happened in the ceremony? How did it go?
Oh, yes. I think the Silver Star Presidential Award for the Act of Valor is one of my proud moments. I have interacted with the former president on 2 occasions. During the award of the Silver Star Presidential Award and during the opening up of the one-stop border in Moyale. And that time, he didn't even realize it is me, But I really appreciate his efforts. And what that means is I am acting as an example, all right, that disability is not inability. And we are able to translate that into meaningful and gainful actions. Actually, to us at Silver Star, I need to talk about one person called Major Ayton. He was in the ISWA event and also he was in the... Yes. Major Ayton is one officer whom I actually trained as a cadet, because in between I was a trainer. I'm a very good trainer. I was a cadet trainer in military cadet school and also in the Defense Intelligence Academy. I was able to ensure that we have around 1,000 students who have passed my hands. And to him coming in, he was a very meticulous guy who would also, again, look up to me. And he was given a field rank promotion from a lieutenant to captain. I think in Kenya, that is the one who's been given after such a long time by the president. And again, it was President Uhuru Kenyatta for his valor actions in Somalia. So he's a very good resource that to easily tap into. So for me, the Silver Star has ensured that one, I'm able to be a role model to very many people. And number two, the language that we'll always speak is a warrior spirit of whereby we don't want to look at the consequences. We consider the actions. And at the end of the day, is be able to work effectively whereby you consider your actions, however small they are, will not impact to the larger, bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that lead into young Kenyans who want to join the military?
Oh, young Kenyans who want to join the military, I will tell them, number one, they really need to be adaptable. Adaptable in this sense that you realize you will join to be an infantryman, but you'll be able to perform other roles. It will range from diplomacy, be ready to perform diplomacy, logistics, and logistics and very many other tasks that you'll be able to do. So you'll not be stuck on this one path. And that explains myself, for example, joining as a special forces, transitioned into civil military and matters of defense diplomacy. And actually, I'm a very good strategic communications expert. So therefore, I will tell them one thing. There's something we call the strategic corporal effect, whereby you develop yourself to be all round. And being all round will ensure that you understand the environment and you understand that any action that you do impacts at the strategic level. So you'll be very steeped in what you do. So let them have an adaptive environment of the strategic corporal effect.
Yeah, well, I can't thank you enough for coming today.
Yeah.
Very interesting discussion. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about this stuff.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Major Suba.
Asante sana.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. That was a great conversation with Major Suba. To everyone listening or watching, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more conversations. We'll see you in the next episode.